in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is the Spit Sports Show. So we are 9 days away from the NFL season. And what that means is we are at one of my favorite parts of the season, which is preseason prediction. The time of planting your flag on your Super Bowl picks, your playoff bracket, your division winners, all of that stuff. And also what comes with these preseason predictions and rankings is your top players. I already did my top 10 NFL players in general, but I haven't yet discussed my quarterback rankings and my quarterback standings. So the difference between rankings and standings is my rankings is 1 through 20, and my standings is I think every quarterback can go into a group. And these groups change year to year. A couple years ago, Lamar Jackson was in the top tier of quarterbacks. He had just won his unanimous MVP a couple years ago. Just 3 years ago, Russell Wilson was voted the second best player in the NFL by the top 100 by the players in the top 100 by NFL.com. So a lot can change year to year in terms of quarterback rankings. So I wanted to give mine today before the start of the 2023 NFL season. This is how I see the quarterback position in the NFL. So I took the top 20 quarterbacks. If you're below that, I'm sorry, but I see you as a below average quarterback. A couple of these guys in the top 20, to be honest with you, I see as below average quarterbacks, as there are 32 teams, 16. So less than half of that is below average, so 20. You get the math. Regardless, if you're below the top 20, you're not on this tier, unfortunately. So my apologies to Sam Howell and whoever is starting in Arizona. You don't make this list. So the first tier of quarterbacks in my mind is won't lose you a game. So these are the game manager types. The type that you just kind of put in to complete short routes and make sure they don't make a critical mistake. So those three right now are Brock Purdy, Daniel Jones, and Derek Carr. Brock Purdy, this one's pretty obvious. He doesn't have the arm talent that a lot of these upper tier quarterbacks have. I haven't seen him play enough to know what he's really great at. I know he's very good at intermediate routes, but if you're an NFL quarterback, you should be pretty good at those 10-yard ins when Deebo Samuel has 5 yards separation and Kittle is running butt naked, wide open up the seam. He's in the most quarterback-friendly offense this side of Bill Walsh's offense, and I don't think he's anything more than a game manager at this point. He could prove me wrong throughout the season, but so far that's where I have him. Daniel Jones is my next one because he's in a similar position to what the Niners are in. He has maybe the most quarterback-friendly coach in the NFL, the guy who took Josh Allen from a guy who was throwing a lot of interceptions, a guy who wasn't seeing the field very well, to an undisputed top 5 guy in the league in Brian Daboll. I think Daboll's an unbelievable coach. I think Jones has an unbelievable running back behind him who can take a lot of pressure off of him. His weapons aren't the best, but Daboll makes the most out of them. I think their new receiver coming in, that rookie at LSU, is going to be really good. And I only see him as a game manager type who can make a rushing play here or there. But his passing is a bit below these other guys on his tier, so it kind of evens out. My last one is Derek Carr. Derek Carr is the life jacket of the NFL. He won't really get you anywhere, but he'll make sure your team doesn't sink. He is someone who has a very defined ceiling. He's never going to win more than 10, 11 games, but he'll never lose more than 6 games. He'll always have at least 6-ish wins. And I think that's pretty much what he's going to do for the Saints this year. 5-12, 6-11, around that for Derek Carr. He's a fine quarterback. He's not going to lose you any games, but he's definitely not going to win you any games. So that's my first tier. My next tier is they might lose you a game, but they will make some plays, which is what you want from your quarterback, especially in today's NFL. You want them to be able to go off script, make a play here or there that could potentially win you a game, even if it might cost you a win here or there. So those people in this tier, those quarterbacks, are Kyler, Geno Smith, Justin Fields, and Deshaun Watson. So for Kyler, this one's pretty obvious. He has maybe the quickest feet I've seen on a quarterback ever. Maybe the quickest feet I've seen on a running back since Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, those kind of guys. Deuce Vaughn nowadays has those kind of feet as well. But he can obviously make plays outside of the pocket. He throws a beautiful deep ball, but we all know what his errors are, and that is he doesn't commit to the off the field film study and doesn't commit to the process the way the guys above him do. And even the guys on this tier do, as far as I know. So he might make you a couple plays, but he'll definitely lose you a game or two because he's just not as prepared as these other guys are. First quarterback ever to have a clause in his contract saying he must study for X amount of hours in a week, which I still cannot believe. The next quarterback on this list is Geno. I've seen enough from Geno that I think he's in this tier, but I haven't seen enough from him to say he can be anywhere above it. He's got a rocket arm when he unleashes it. I think him and DK are an awesome pairing because DK is the type of receiver who can just go up and get those kind of balls that Geno wants to throw. But I just can't get out of my head the first 4 years he had with the Jets where he looked like, I don't want to say a bust because he wasn't a high draft pick, but he definitely didn't look like a starting quarterback. I understand the situation around him wasn't great, but we've seen plenty of quarterbacks have 1 year of just greatness and then fall back down to earth. The most recent example being Carson Wentz when he was probably going to win MVP before he blew his knee out. And we never saw that same Carson Wentz again. I don't think that's going to happen with Geno, but it could. So I can't put him any higher than this tier. My next player on this tier is Justin Fields. Fields is to me what Kyler could have been if he was committed. Everything I see from Fields when he's talking to the media is exactly what I want to hear. This guy is dynamic with his legs, the only quarterback besides Lamar Jackson to rush for 1,000 yards, and he did it in his rookie season. To say destitute talent around him would be an understatement. He had 1,000-yard rusher in his backfield, and that's about it. To be totally honest with you, I couldn't name one of his receivers from last year. I probably could, but you guys know what I mean. He had a severe lack of talent on offense, a defensive head coach, and he still looked like he could be a very good quarterback in the NFL to the point where the Bears committed to it. They picked up DJ Moore. They picked up new backs, and they picked up Chase Claypool, who I think is a raw talent, pretty good receiver. They've got some talent this year, and I think the Bears are going to be scary. I could definitely see Fields moving up these tiers by the end of the year, but for now, I've got him here. My next quarterback in here is Deshaun Watson. To be honest with you, he is the biggest X factor of any quarterback on this list because by the end of the season, he could very well be in the third, second tier, but I haven't seen him play good football in 3 years. And as a quarterback, it's all about rhythm. It's all about repetition. And he hasn't gotten any of that in the past few years. Look what it did to Trey Lance. I know it's a different example, but Trey Lance didn't play football for 3 years. And it looks to me, watching him in the preseason and even during some of his regular season starts, he's totally lost because he hasn't had that quarterback mentality in his mind for the past few years. I don't know if that's going to happen with Deshaun. I do know that when he was at the top of his game, he was undisputed a top 5 quarterback. But last year, he didn't look great. I think Cleveland's O-line is very good, and I think he's got some decent weapons. So if there's going to be a year to bounce back, this is going to be it. But until he does that, I'm going to put him on. He might lose you a game, but he'll definitely make a play or two. The tier above that is above average quarterbacks. So the leader of this pack, and he has been for the past couple of years, is Kirk Cousins, followed by Tua, followed by Goff, followed by Dak. Kirk is obvious at this point. We all know what he's going to do. He's going to throw for over 4,000 yards, probably over 25 touchdowns, and he's going to win you some games. And he's going to be a guy who you can really trust in the regular season, but when it comes to those primetime games, playoff games, the games that you really need to win to elevate your franchise, he's always going to be a step below these guys above him. And even some of the guys on this tier, to be totally honest with you. Regular season dynamo, though, and he's got an unbelievable connection with Justin Jefferson, and I hope he starts to get that connection with Jordan Addison coming out of USC, who I think is going to be an awesome addition to this Viking offense. But we all know Kirk is kind of the baseline of an above average quarterback, but not that guy. Right behind him or above him, well, you'll find out in a bit, is Tua. Tua, I think, is really, really good if everything around him is perfect. He needs the best weapons, he needs a solid offensive line, and he needs a running game to be successful. Fortunately for him, he has all of those things nowadays. He's got maybe the best yards after catch receiver we've ever seen in Tyreek Hill. He's got Jalen Waddle, who is just, he's a younger version of Deshaun Jackson to me, except maybe a little quicker. The way he can extend the field is unbelievable. He's got capable backs. Raheem Mostert coming back. Jeff Wilson Jr., I think, is really a really good player. When he was the lead back in San Francisco, he averaged around 100 scrimmage yards a game. I think this Dolphins offense is going to be really good, but I don't see Tua having the talent, the arm talent, the ability to make plays off script that the guys above him do. So he's an above average quarterback, but I can't put him anywhere higher than that. The next quarterback is Jared Goff, who is similar to Kyler, or similar to Tua, sorry, in that he needs a lot around him to be great, specifically his offensive line. When he is protected, he is a top 10 undisputed passer in the league, maybe top 5. He throws an unbelievable ball, both short, mid, and long range. He's cool under pressure when the games get tight if he's protected, but if that offensive line starts to seize up, it becomes an issue for him and he gets gun shy. Fortunately for him, he's in a Lions offense that has one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and he's got some really good receivers around him. Great connection with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think is going to emerge as a top 5 receiver this year. And Jameson Williams is coming back, who can really help him with his deep stuff. I think Goff's a really good quarterback. He can obviously make it to a Super Bowl because he's done it before, but a lot around him has to be really good for him to be really good. So I have him in above average. The next quarterback is Dak, who is, believe it or not, needs a lot around him to be great. When he had in 2016, his rookie year, when he had his 2018, I can't remember, 2018, I believe the year was, his rookie season, with Zeke being the best running back in the world, him having undisputedly the best offensive line in football, and Dez Bryant, who at that point was a top 10 receiver, he looked like a top 5 quarterback. Since then, his weapons have gotten worse. His offensive line has slowly deteriorated. And with that, his play has slowly deteriorated. Most interceptions of his career last year. He hasn't made it past the divisional round in his career. And I put him a bit above most quarterbacks because of his intangibles, because of his leadership ability, because of his playmaking. But at the end of the day, he's like the other guys on this tier. He needs everything around him to be really good to perfect for him to be really good to perfect. And at this point, that's what we've seen from him. So I can't put him anywhere above average quarterback. Very good, but needs a lot around him to be good. My next tier is awesome quarterback, but something's just off. So in this tier, we have Rodgers, Stafford, Lamar. Rodgers is pretty simple. Last year, he had Christian Watson, who emerged as a young star receiver, Romeo Doubs, who I still really believe in, as a wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3, Robert Tonyan, who is a top 10 tight end and a top 10 O-line in football, and he had the worst season of his career. I don't think Rodgers is quite as committed to the off-season program, training, throwing camps that Brady was. He's definitely not on the TB12 method, I'll tell you that. Ayahuasca is definitely not in that Tom Brady magazine. I'm not here to judge him for it. It's just true. When you're committing time to other things other than quarterbacking and constantly getting better and eating right and doing the right things with your body, heat, cold, all of that, you drop off faster. We've seen it a million times in the NBA and in the NFL. And I think that's happening with him. He's still a great quarterback. I think he's going to have a really good year with the Jets this year, being reinvigorated in the Big Apple. Garrett Wilson is better than any receiver he had on the Packers last year. Their offensive line worries me because he's always been really protected. I think he's still going to be really good, but something's just a little off with Rodgers. With Matthew Stafford, it's very similar to Rodgers. We know he's a Super Bowl quarterback. He won a Super Bowl just 2 years ago. The only thing is he got beat up in Detroit, man. When I watched those games, his offensive line was bottom 10, and the amount of times his head would just whip back into the ground and his arm looked like it was getting ripped off when he was throwing a ball. It adds up. And it has started to add up. It seems like he's got an elbow issue that isn't easily solved, that he's just going to have to play through. And I don't see him going back to top 5 arm talent Matthew Stafford anytime soon. He's older. He's got another year of wear and tear on his body. And this Rams offense, and especially their offensive line, is nowhere near where it was when they won that Super Bowl. So he's still great. I think he's still going to be really, really good, but something's just a little off. With Lamar, what's off with him is his accuracy with the simple intermediate passes that he needs to complete. He's obviously maybe the most dynamic player in the NFL. He might be the best running back in the NFL. He just so happens to play quarterback. And his highlight throws are just as good as anybody in the world, to be totally honest with you. He can definitely fire rockets through keyholes. It's just that with a 5-yard slant or a 3-yard zig or even a short seam route up the middle, he's not great at completing those layups yet. And if you want to win the big games, you've got to nail down the fundamentals. And I don't think he's quite done that yet. I hope he improves. I think he will, because what I've seen so far from him is that he's a workaholic in the offseason. Seems like he's got the right mentality, and I think he's a really good leader for that team. But right now, something's just a little off that I can't quite put him in the undisputed elite, which is the next tier of quarterbacks I have. And that's Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and Trevor Lawrence. Each of these guys is freaking awesome for different reasons. Herbert is the best quarterback from rookie season to third season we have ever seen. He's transformed a Chargers team who was like the little brother to the Rams into probably a better team just by his presence there. Ever since he's gotten there, there's been excitement around the Chargers. Hasn't done enough winning to be in the next tier of quarterbacks, but the talent's so obvious. He's a 4.0 biology major. He's so smart. He's so talented, and his teammates love him. He's an undisputed elite quarterback in this league, and I think this is the year he moves up into the next tier with Kellen Moore as his offensive coordinator instead of that fraud Joe Lombardi, who I think was holding him back with 5-yard checkdowns and 2-yard drags. No creativity on offense whatsoever. He's going to get some this season. I can't wait. Josh Allen is obviously an undisputed elite quarterback. Probably raw talent, the most talented in the world. His arm talent, his ability to run the football, and his ability to lead, I think, is super underrated. The way I saw players talk about him in the NFL 100 videos that they did, the one about him, everyone was like, yeah, he's a dog. He'll talk some smack. He's very intense on the field, very much so wants to win. And you can tell that it's driving him crazy that he hasn't won that big game yet. I think that 13-second game against the Chiefs really sent them back a touch, but that has nothing to do with Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is an undisputed elite quarterback in this league, and so is Trevor Lawrence. After he finally got an NFL coach instead of a college coach pretending to like the NFL, he turned into I don't know what the word is for it, but he is just, when you watch him play, he reminds me the most of Joe Burrow that isn't Joe Burrow. He is very good from the pocket. He makes every throw look so effortless. He can make plays. He's 6'6", and he's more athletic than you think he is. In that playoff game, he made a couple plays with his legs that I didn't know he had in him. And oh yeah, by the way, he completed the greatest playoff comeback ever. 27-0 down, came all the way back to win that playoff game, 31-28. First year with an NFL coach, won a playoff game, looked like an absolute superstar after November. Trevor Lawrence is an undisputed elite quarterback. I think he's only going to get better. My next tier is the first consorts. So if you don't know what a consort is, it's a special advisor to the king. So just a tick below, still incredible power, but not quite the king. So the first consorts of the NFL are Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. So Joe Burrow, I have called Joe Montana 3.0, and I think that's for pretty good reason. He is the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. He has taken a once destitute franchise in Cincinnati to a perennial contender in the AFC every single year. Took him to a Super Bowl in his first year, well healthy, starting for the first time since Boomer Esiason did it in 1989. He is an unbelievable talent. He's got an unbelievable connection with his receivers, especially Chase, obviously, from their LSU days. He's unbelievably special. He can make plays with his legs when he needs to, but that is not what he wants to do. He is a precision passer. He's always got the ball in the right spot, and he's the only quarterback currently active to beat Patrick Mahomes in a big playoff game in a big spot. And he nearly did it again last year if it weren't for that stupid hit by Joseph Asai when Patrick Mahomes was clearly out of bounds and he still decided to give him a body check for good measure. Still not quite over that. I had a significant amount of money bet on that game. But anyways, the other first consort is Jalen Hurts. Every single time this guy steps up to a microphone, it's a bar. Like, if he wasn't a good quarterback, I'm serious. He would have a career in motivational rapping ready for him. He's unbelievably focused. He's improved as a passer every single year. And besides Lamar, he is the most dynamic quarterback in the NFL. And even including Lamar in the red zone, he is the most dynamic quarterback. He almost led the league in rushing touchdowns last year as a quarterback. And if Jamal Williams of the Lions didn't have the goal line season of the decade, nearly breaking Barry Sanders' touchdown record, or breaking it, by one touchdown, he probably would have led the league in rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. His teammates love him. They follow him. He's got the photo of him walking off the field after the Super Bowl loss as his lock screen. That is how focused this guy is. He is unbelievable. Love Jalen Hurts. I think he's only going to get better. He is the other first consort to the king, who is Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if I even need to say anything more about Patrick Mahomes, but I will anyways. What he did last year, winning the Super Bowl with his main weapons being Kadarius Toney, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Sky Moore on the outside, is unlike anything I've ever seen before. 4 rookies in the secondary. An offensive line that was very good in pass protection, but couldn't block the run to save their life. 2 rookie backs, and he goes out there and beats the best roster in the NFL in the Super Bowl after going down by 2.5 scores. This guy is a freak, and he's obviously the best quarterback in the world. MVP last year, Super Bowl champion, and Super Bowl MVP. He's got it all. He is the king of the NFL until further notice. So, I gave you my standings for the quarterback, the tiers, if you will. Those are how I see them in the grand scope of the NFL. I think they're all into groups. However, you guys are going to want an actual ranking for how I think these quarterbacks are. So I'm going to give it to you 20 to number 1. I'm going to try to go quick here because we're already way over time. Number 20, Brock Purdy. 7-0 in games he started. Haven't seen enough from him. Like I said, most quarterback-friendly offense ever. How good would he be outside of the Shanahan system? We don't know. Probably not going to find out anytime soon. For now, he's at 20. Daniel Jones, number 19, hasn't thrown for over 25 touchdowns in his career. Last year was supposedly his breakout season, and he threw 15. I think he's a decent quarterback, but I think he's got the perfect coach and the perfect situation around him. He's number 19. Number 18 is Carr. Yeah, kind of the gold standard for for swim but don't sink. Think he's a decent quarterback, nothing more. Not really much more to say about him. 17, Kyler. He's got all the talent in the world and nothing else. Think if this guy had the mentality that a lot of these top guys like Allen, Mahomes, even Brady had, I think he could have been a top 5 quarterback. Unfortunately, injuries and his lack of commitment have caught up to him. I think he's at 17. 16, Geno Smith. There's really one question. Is he a one-hit wonder or not? I don't know. I haven't seen enough from him to say he's better than the guys above him, but I've definitely seen enough from him character-wise, arm talent-wise, and he makes all the intermediate throws very, very well. So I got him at 16. Number 15, just above him, is Fields. His talent is through the roof. He's got Kyler Murray talent, except it seems like he's got a really good head on his shoulders. Like I said, they added DJ Moore, added Chase Claypool, added to the defense. Offensive line looks like it's going to be better. I think the Bears are going to be good this year, and I think Fields is the main reason why. I love Justin Fields. I think he's going to move up this list by the end of next year. Deshaun, biggest X factor by far. He could be top 5 or completely off this list by the end. I have no idea. And this is going to be interesting for the Cleveland Browns because if he does regress once again, we just talked about Trey Lance being the biggest draft bust in NFL history. We are going to look at Deshaun as the biggest overpayment in NFL history if this doesn't work out. A lot of pressure on him this year. A lot of pressure on Cleveland. Kirk Cousins is 13. This is an interesting stat that I read. Kirk is the only man ever to lead a bottom 3 defense to the playoffs. Fun little stat there. I think Kirk's really good, but I've only got him at 13 because he's not better than Tua Tagovailoa, who is at number 12. He's 21-13 as a starter, threw 25 touchdowns last year, and overall, he does everything his coach wants him to do. He gets the ball out quick, he's accurate, and he's very, very good at reading the field, except in the preseason. Number 11 is Dak. I would honestly have him lower based off his accuracy, arm talent, all of that, but his intangibles are top-notch. He's the leader of that team, and he has led a top 10 offense in each of the last 3 years. He's consistent. He's proven. Dak at 11. Number 10 is Jared Goff. You guys might say I have him too high. I definitely don't think so. If he's protected, he is a top 10 quarterback. After week 8, he played like a top 8 quarterback. 17 touchdowns and 2,500 yards on an 8-2 Lions team to close off the season, including a win at Lambeau Field in the cold against the Packers to knock them out of the playoffs. Number 9 is Stafford. Haven't seen him play really well in a year or so, but he is a Super Bowl level quarterback with Super Bowl level talent and in maybe the best QB wide receiver connection between him and Cooper Kupp. I think he's still going to be really good this season. Number 8 is number 8 of the Jets, Aaron Rodgers. I could not believe this when I read it. I was on StatHead and I was looking at his passing yard numbers. So I went all the way back. He hasn't thrown for over 300 yards since December 12th, 2021. Think about what you were doing on December 12th, 2021. Do you remember? No, neither do I. Hasn't thrown for 300 yards since then. I think he's still going to be obviously a top quarterback, but the days of him being almost unanimous MVP, I think, are over. Number 7, Lamar. I've already talked enough about him. I think he's unbelievably dynamic, but he just needs to improve on his fundamentals and layups, and I think he's going to be top 5. Lawrence is number 6. Since November of last year, when he finally got adjusted to the Doug Peterson system, he threw for 15 touchdowns had 3 300-yard games, and like I said, won a playoff game in the greatest comeback in playoff history. Lawrence is a special talent. Another year under Doug Peterson, a full offseason, another full offseason to get adjusted to his style of offense. I think he's going to be awesome this season. Can't wait to watch him play. Herbert is number 5. Most passing yards through a quarterback's first 3 years ever. Most passing touchdowns through a quarterback's first 3 years ever. And his teammates love him. He's undisputedly a top 3 arm talent. And he did this all with, I think, far below average coaching, both as at head coach and offensive coordinator. He finally gets a real offensive coordinator back. I think this is his year where he becomes a top 3 quarterback, and he passes the guy. I think he'll pass this year, the guy who's number 4 currently on this list, Josh Allen. He hasn't thrown for less than 35 touchdowns since 2020. And if you really think about it, he is the Bills' offense. He's obviously their best passer, but he's also their best runner. They haven't been able to develop a run game since he's been there. And the fact that he has that much on his shoulders and he still leads the Bills to 12 wins every year and usually a playoff win or 2, I think is extremely impressive. I think he's got all of that. I just don't think he's going to be better than Herbert by the end of this year, but I think he's an undisputed elite quarterback. Very good. Number 4, Josh Allen. Number 3 is Jalen Hurts, because he made it further in his one playoff run than Josh Allen ever has by 1 round. Made it to a Super Bowl. Josh obviously made it to the AFC Championship game a couple years ago. I think Hurts is he's Dak Prescott, but more talented. Got all of the intangibles in the world. His teammates follow him like Moses through the Red Sea. They would die for this guy, man, and he would die for their cause. Gets better every single year. One of the best mentalities in the NFL. Love Jalen Hurts. Number 3, Joe Burrow has the highest completion percentage ever of anyone who has thrown over 500 passes in their career. Think about that. Anyone ever. More than Brady, more than Montana, more than Manning, more than Breeze. Highest completion percentage of anyone who has thrown over 500 passes in their career. This guy's unbelievable, but he's just not Patrick Mahomes, who is obviously number 1 on this list. Don't even need to say anything more about Patrick Mahomes, king of the NFL, until further notice. So, long episode here, but I loved every second of it. I had so much fun talking about this, but I want to know, what did you guys think? Do you guys think I'm crazy for having Allen that high? Do you guys think Fields should be below Kirk or below Kyler or below Geno? Is Fields too high? Is Rodgers too low? Give me your thoughts. I really want to know what you guys think about the rankings of quarterbacks going into the season. Like I said, they change like the wind. The quarterback rankings this year definitely will not be the quarterback rankings next year. But for now, that's how I see it. Please let me know your thoughts. As always, The Spit Show comes out every other day. Thank you guys so much for listening. It's been so much fun making this dream a reality. And it's all thanks to you guys. So thank you so much. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.